Technology and society or technology and culture refers to cyclical codependence, co-influence, co-production of technology and society upon the other. This synergistic relationship occurred from the dawn of humankind, with the invention of simple tools and continues into modern technology such as the printing press and computers. The academic discipline studying the impacts of science, technology, and society and vice versa is called science and technology studies. Prehistorical, the importance of stone tools, circa 2.5 million years ago, is considered fundamental in human development in the hunting hypothesis. The beginnings of technology, by the 1980s, the use of technology began to escalate. A 1982 study by the New York Times stated, the study was made by the Institute for the Future, a Menlo Park, California, agency under contract to the National Science Foundation. It was an attempt at the risky business of technology assessment, peering into the future of an electronic world. The study focused on the emerging videotex industry, formed by the marriage of two older technologies, communications and computing. It estimated that 40% of American households will have two-way videotex service by the end of the century. By comparison, it took television 16 years to penetrate 90% of households from the time commercial service was begun. Opportunities for abuse, catching fire, how cooking made us human, theorizes that the control of fire by early humans and the associated development of cooking was the spark that radically changed human evolution. Texts such as guns, germs, and steel suggest that early advances in plant agriculture and husbandry fundamentally shifted the way that collective groups of individuals, and eventually societies, developed. Modern examples and effects, technology has become a huge part of everyday society's life. When societies knows more about the development in a technology, they become able to take advantage of it. When an innovation achieves a certain point after it has been presented and promoted, this technology becomes part of the society. Digital technology has entered each process and activity made by the social system. In fact, it constructed another worldwide communication system in addition to its origin. Since the creation of computers achieved an entire better approach to transmit and store data. Digital technology became commonly used for downloading music, and watching movies at home either by DVDs or purchasing it online. Digital music records are not quite the same as traditional recording media. Obviously, because digital ones are reproducible, portable and free. However, although these previous examples only show a few of the positive aspects of technology in society, there are negative side effects as well. Within this virtual realm, social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat have altered the way Generation Y culture is understanding the world and thus how they view themselves. In recent years, there has been more research on the development of social media depression in users of sites like these. Facebook depression, as some have deemed, is when users are so affected by their friends' posts and lives that their own jealousy depletes their sense of self-worth. They compare themselves to the posts made by their peers and feel unworthy or monotonous because they know that their life is not nearly as exciting as others. Another instance of the negative effects of technology in society is how quickly it is pushing younger generations into maturity. With the world at their fingertips, children can learn anything they wish to. But with the uncensored sources from the Internet, without proper supervision, children can be exposed to explicit material at inappropriate ages. This comes in the forms of premature interests in experimenting with makeup, or opening an email account or social media page, all of which can become a window for predators and other dangerous entities that threaten a child's innocence. Effects on advertising. Intechnet.com states that, statistics therefore reveal that the growing trend of advertising is leaning heavily on Internet. Advertising products and services through the Internet are more effective and efficient for surely it saves on a lot of time. Advertisements are immediately published which is not restricted by time or any geographical boundaries thus reaching global consumers at large. It has brought business to the fingertips by which a product can be viewed, liked, order placed and even paid for it online. Computers are considered an important factor in our daily lives. In fact, it became all around in a short period of time. Now it can be seen in desktops, cars and cell phones. By 2014, smartphone markets are going to overtake computer users, reaching 30% of the cell phone business worldwide. For the continuous desire of wanting better quality and sound, signal and images, cell phones are now better than ever. It includes everything a person can think of, featuring from blogging, recording and uploading to browsing the internet. As a result, iTunes Store have reached 5 billion songs and 1.5 billion iPhone downloads in 2009. Notably, cell phones have been developed to become a mini-computer, including high-resolution user interface, digital images and video cameras, memory storage, pre-installed keyboard and applications, and even more applications that could be downloaded by the user. Recording videos and audios are becoming nearly close to DVD quality on cell phones. This feature made it simpler for people to record important events and interviews. Moreover, they could share them online with the society by various video sharing sites, such as YouTube. Additionally, most cell phones have a built-in GPS that would allow them to locate events on Google Maps and more. Modern technologies have made instructive information for classrooms and home assignments easier and simpler. It provides children, who have difficulties in learning the traditional way, with educational games that would help them in the process of learning. Alternatively, from attending classes, online courses are offered to college students in advantage. The progress of the innovation of technology is continuing to improve the education sector for coming generations. Students today are called a Euro screenagers, a Euro unregistered trademark, a Euro digital native as a Euro unregistered trademark, or a Euro digital kids, a Euro unregistered trademark, because they were born in a complicated digital world based on technology. Teachers are using digital technology as an essential tool to help in guiding lessons and student a Euro unregistered trademark as communication. In fact, computers have been in the education frame globally for a long period of time. Students are associating with others more globally and learning more things in varied ways than at any time in the past. New types of technology are going to be introduced continually. Most of these technologies are considered to make our life easier. Economics and technological development. In ancient history, economics began when occasional, spontaneous exchange of goods and services was replaced over time by deliberate trade structures. Makers of arrowheads, for example, might have realized they could do better by concentrating on making arrowheads and barter for other needs. Clearly, regardless of goods and services bartered, some amount of technology was involved, a Euro if no more than in the making of shell and bead jewelry. Even the shaman's potions and sacred objects can be said to have involved some technology. So, from the very beginnings, technology can be said to have spurred the development of more elaborate economies. In the modern world, superior technologies, resources, geography, and history give rise to robust economies. And in a well-functioning, robust economy, economic excess naturally flows into greater use of technology. Moreover, because technology is such an inseparable part of human society, especially in its economic aspects, funding sources for technological endeavors are virtually illimitable. However, while in the beginning, technological investment involved little more than the time, efforts, and skills of one or a few men, today, such investment may involve the collective labor and skills of many millions. Funding equals, consequently, the sources of funding for large technological efforts have dramatically narrowed, since few have ready access to the collective labor of a whole society, or even a large part. It is conventional to divide up funding sources into governmental and private business or individual enterprises. Government funding for new technology. The government is a major contributor to the development of new technology in many ways. In the United States alone, many government agencies specifically invest billions of dollars in new technology. In 1980, the UK government invested just over £6 million in a 4-year programme, later extended to 6 years, called the Microelectronics Education Programme, which was intended to give every school in Britain at least one computer, software, training materials, and extensive teacher training. Similar programs have been instituted by governments around the world. Technology has frequently been driven by the military, with many modern applications developed for the military before they were adapted for civilian use. However, this has always been a two-way flow, with industry often developing and adopting a technology only later adopted by the military. Entire government agencies are specifically dedicated to research, such as America's National Science Foundation, the United Kingdom's Scientific Research Institutes, America's Small Business Innovative Research Effort. Many other government agencies dedicate a major portion of their budget to research and development. Private funding, research and development is one of the smallest areas of investments made by corporations toward new and innovative technology. Many foundations and other non-profit organizations contribute to the development of technology. In the OECD, about two-thirds of research and development in scientific and technical fields is carried out by industry, and 98% and 10% respectively by universities and government. But in poorer countries such as Portugal and Mexico, the industry contribution is significantly less. The U.S. government spends more than other countries on military research and development, although the proportion has fallen from about 30% in the 1980s to less than 10%. The 2009 founding of Kickstarter allows individuals to receive funding via crowdsourcing for many technology-related products, including both new physical creations as well as documentaries, films, and web series that focus on technology management. This circumvents the corporate or government oversight most inventors and artists struggle against, but leaves the accountability of the project completely with the individual receiving the funds. Other economic considerations appropriate technology, sometimes called intermediate technology, more of an economics concern, refers to compromises between central and expensive technologies of developed nations and those that developing nations find most effective to deploy given an excess of labor and scarcity of cash. Persuasion technology, in economics, definitions or assumptions of progress or growth are often related to one or more assumptions about technology's economic influence. Challenging prevailing assumptions about technology and its usefulness has led to alternative ideas like uneconomic growth or measuring well-being. These, and economics itself, can often be described as technologies, specifically, as persuasion technology. Technocapitalism, technological diffusion, technology acceptance model, technology life cycle, technology transfer. Sociological factors and effects. Values the implementation of technology influences the values of a society by changing expectations and realities. The implementation of technology is also influenced by values. There are three major, interrelated values that inform, and are informed by, technological innovations: mechanistic worldview, viewing the universe as a collection of parts that can be individually analyzed and understood. This is a form of reductionism that is rare nowadays. However, the neo-mechanistic worldview holds that nothing in the universe cannot be understood by the human intellect. Also, while all things are greater than the sum of their parts, in principle, even this excess must eventually be understood by human intelligence. That is, no divine or vital principle or essence is involved. Efficiency, a value, originally applied only to machines, but now applied to all aspects of society, so that each element is expected to attain a higher and higher percentage of its maximal possible performance, output, or ability. Social progress, the belief that there is such a thing as social progress, and that, in the main, it is beneficent. Before the Industrial Revolution, and the subsequent explosion of technology, almost all societies believed in a cyclical theory of social movement and, indeed, of all history and the universe. This was, obviously, based on the cyclicity of the seasons, and an agricultural economies and society's strong ties to that cyclicity. Since much of the world is closer to their agricultural roots, they are still much more amenable to cyclicity than progress in history. This may be seen, for example, in Prabhat Ranjan-Sarkar's modern social cycles theory. For a more westernized version of social cyclicity, see Generations, The History of America's Future, 1584-2069 by Neil Howe and William Strauss. Harper Perennial. Reprint edition. ISBN 0-688-11912-3, and subsequent books by these authors. Institutions and groups. Technology often enables organizational and bureaucratic group structures that otherwise and heretofore were simply not possible. Examples of this might include the rise of very large organizations, for example, governments, the military, health and social welfare institutions, supranational corporations. The commercialization of leisure, sports events, products, etc. The almost instantaneous dispersal of information and entertainment around the world. International. Technology enables greater knowledge of international issues, values, and cultures. Due mostly to mass transportation and mass media, the world seems to be a much smaller place, due to the following: globalization of ideas, embeddedness of values, population growth and control. Environment. Technology provides an understanding, and an appreciation for the world around us. Most modern technological processes produce unwanted byproducts in addition to the desired products, which is known as industrial waste and pollution. While most material waste is reused in the industrial process, many forms are released into the environment, with negative environmental side effects, such as pollution and lack of sustainability. Different social and political systems establish different balances between the value they place on additional goods versus the disvalues of waste products and pollution. Some technologies are designed specifically with the environment in mind, but most are designed first for economic or ergonomic effects. Historically, the value of a clean environment and more efficient productive processes has been the result of an increase in the wealth of society, because once people are able to provide for their basic needs, they are able to focus on less tangible goods such as clean air and water. The effects of technology on the environment are both obvious and subtle. The more obvious effects include the depletion of known renewable natural resources, and the added pollution of air, water, and land. The more subtle effects include debates over long-term effects. Each wave of technology creates a set of waste previously unknown by humans: toxic waste, radioactive waste, electronic waste. One of the main problems is the lack of an effective way to remove these pollutants on a large scale expediently. In nature, organisms recycle the wastes of other organisms. For example, plants produce oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. Oxygen-breathing organisms use oxygen to metabolize food, producing carbon dioxide as a byproduct, which plants use in a process to make sugar, with oxygen as a waste in the first place. No such mechanism exists for the removal of technological wastes. Construction and shaping. Choice. Society also controls technology through the choices it makes. These choices not only include consumer demands. They also include the channels of distribution. How do products go from raw materials to consumption to disposal? The cultural beliefs regarding style, freedom of choice, consumerism, materialism, etc. The economic values we place on the environment, individual wealth, government control, capitalism, etc. According to Williams and Edge, the construction and shaping of technology includes the concept of choice. Choice is inherent in both the design of individual artifacts and systems, and in the making of those artifacts and systems. The idea here is that a single technology may not emerge from the unfolding of a predetermined logic or a single determinant. Technology could be a garden of forking paths, with different paths potentially leading to different technological outcomes. This is a position that has been developed in detail by Judy Wajman. Therefore, choices could have differing implications for society and for particular social groups. Autonomous technology. In one line of thought, technology develops autonomously. In other words, technology seems to feed on itself, moving forward with a force irresistible by humans. To these individuals, technology is inherently dynamic and self-augmenting. Jacques Ellul is one proponent of the irresistibleness of technology to humans. He espouses the idea that humanity cannot resist the temptation of expanding our knowledge and our technological abilities. However, he does not believe that this seeming autonomy of technology is inherent. but the perceived autonomy is because humans do not adequately consider the responsibility that is inherent in technological processes. Langdon Winner critiques the idea that technological evolution is essentially beyond the control of individuals or society in his book Autonomous Technology. He argues instead that the apparent autonomy of technology is a result of technological somnambulism, the tendency of people to uncritically and unreflectively embrace and utilize new technologies without regard for their broader social and political effects. Government individuals rely on governmental assistance to control the side effects and negative consequences of technology. Supposed independence of government. An assumption commonly made about the government is that their governance role is neutral or independent. However, some argue that governing is a political process, so government will be influenced by political winds of influence. In addition, because government provides much of the funding for technological research and development, it has a vested interest in certain outcomes. Others point out that the world's biggest ecological disasters, such as the Aral Sea, Chernobyl, and Lake Karachay have been caused by government projects, which are not accountable to consumers. Liability. One means for controlling technology is to place responsibility for the harm with the agent causing the harm. Government can allow more or less legal liability to fall to the organizations or individuals responsible for damages. Legislation. A source of controversy is the role of industry versus that of government in maintaining a clean environment. While it is generally agreed that industry needs to be held responsible when pollution harms other people, there is disagreement over whether this should be prevented by legislation or civil courts, and whether ecological systems as such should be protected from harm by governments. Recently, the social shaping of technology has had new influence in the fields of e-science and e-social science in the United Kingdom, which has made centres focusing on the social shaping of science and technology a central part of their funding programs. See also. References. Further reading, Puricelli, F. Early 20th Century Transportation Technology and the Creation of Modern American Culture. Ra 1/4 CKRIEM, F. Digital Technology and Mediation, A Challenge to Activity Theory. Learning and Expanding with Activity Theory. Katz, M. Capturing Sound, How Technology Has Changed Music. Hendry, S. Great Gadget, Stratospheric Price. Cochrane, T. Bateman, R. Smartphones Give You Wings, Pedagogical Affordances of Mobile Web 2.0. Australasian Journal of Educational Technology. Adars, Michael. Machines as the Measure of Men, Science, Technology, and Ideologies of Western Dominance. Ithaca, Cornell University Press. ISBN 0-8014-2303-1. Urino, P. Technology is a Social and Political Phenomenon. Wiley and Sons, ISBN 0471068756. Castells, Manuel. The Rise of the Network Society. Oxford, UK. Wiley-Blackwell. ISBN 978-1045196,864. Dixon, D. Politics of Alternative Technology. Universe Publisher, ISBN 0876639171. Easton, T. Taking Sides, Clashing Views in Science, Technology, and Society. McGraw-Hill, ISBN 0078050278. Huseman, Michael H., and Joyce A. Huseman. Techno-Physics, Why Technology Won a Euro Unregistered Trademark T. Save Us or the Environment, New Society Publishers, Gabriel Island, British Columbia, Canada, ISBN 0865717044, 464 pp. Andrei Korotayev, Artemy Malkov, and Daria Kulto-Urina. Introduction to Social Macrodynamics, Compact Macromodels of the World System Growth ISBN 5-484-00414-4, Mackenzie, D., and J. Wajman The Social Shaping of Technology. McGraw-Hill Education, ISBN 0335199135. Magine, Robert E. Science, Technology, and Society. Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. Prentice Hall. ISBN 0-13-794736-4. Msteen, for example, Technological Change, Its Impact on Man and Society. Harvard University Press, ISBN 0674872355. Mumford, L. Techniques in Civilization. University of Chicago Press, ISBN 0226550273. Noble, David F., Forces of Production, A Social History of Industrial Automation, New York, USA, Knopf, ISBN 978-0-394-51262-4, LCCN 83048867. Postman, N. Technopoly, The Surrender of Culture to Technology. Vintage, ISBN 0679745408. Sklove, R.E. Democracy and Technology. The Guilford Press, ISBN 0898628661-X, Dan Signor and Sol Singer, Startup Nation, The Story of Israel's Economic Miracle, Hachette Book Group, New York, ISBN 0-446-54146-X, Shaw, Jeffrey M. Illusions of Freedom, Thomas Merton and Jacques Ellul on Technology and the Human Condition. Eugene, Oregon, Whitfordstock. ISBN 978-1,625,640,581. Smil, Vaclav. Energy in World History. Boulder, Westview Press, pages 259-267. ISBN 0-8133-1901-3. Cited at Technology Chronology. Williams, Robin. Edge, David. What is the Social Shaping of Technology? Research Policy 25. Retrieved August 10, 2006. Winston, Morton. Children of Invention. In Morton, Winston and Ralphie Delbach. Society, Ethics, and Technology. Belmont, California. Thomson Woodsworth. ISBN 0-534-58540-X. External links, Science, Technology, and Society, an international journal, Scientists for Global Responsibility, Technology and Society books and journal articles, Technology and Society book reviews, The Local Institute, The New Atlantis, A Journal of Technology and Society, Union of Concerned Scientists.